Success has been made possible by trade-ins and telecom.
Good evening, welcome to Success. I'm Penelope Barr. Tonight we meet a man who returned to China in search of a bride and found not only a wife, but the right recipe for a business. In Tauranga we visit Bob Owens, the wharfie who grew one of the country's largest transport companies. But first, an inspiring story about two young men who weaned themselves off the invalid's benefit and started their own company. Glenn McMillan was like any other 10-year-old schoolboy. He liked to play football, run with his friends and ride his bike. But on the morning of February 7th, 1970, everything changed. After falling off his bike in Hillsborough, Auckland, he staggered 300 metres home, hemorrhaged, collapsed and fell into a coma. That Glenn survived is nothing short of a miracle. After 4 years in hospital, nearly half of that in critical care, he was left with permanent motor damage and speech difficulties. But despite these obvious setbacks, Glenn's gone on to build a successful business. Glenn could have justifiably spent his adulthood on a sickness benefit. After 26 major operations, he can walk, but with difficulty, and his vocal cords are damaged. But Glenn was driven to enter the workforce and chose the electronics field. Between 1977 and 1987, he earned a number of electronic qualifications and worked for the likes of Plessy and Tisco as a repairman.
After my accident, I was physically unable to do a lot of other jobs. I needed a job where I could be basically sitting most of the time. So electronics was it. I mean, there wasn't a lot of choice if you wanted to get ahead.
Good morning, Total Telephone Services. Can I help you?
Today, Glenn runs his own telephone servicing business in New Lynn, Auckland. He and partner Wayne Chapman have been in business for 3 years and do 3,000 phone repairs annually. But getting to this point has been as much of an emotional and financial struggle for Glenn as a physical one.
With a physical disability, face hurdles an able-bodied person wouldn't face. And you'll get an occasional person that I consider ignorant or they don't say so, that won't deal with me at all. They'll want to deal with somebody that's not walking funny.
In 1987, Glenn had another accident. He was electrocuted while crawling around underneath a house to install an intercom system, much like this. It exacerbated his old injuries and meant he could no longer work. So he spent the next 3 years on an invalid's benefit. While attending an employment rehabilitation centre, he met Wayne Chapman, a paraplegic confined to a wheelchair. Wayne and Glenn forged a friendship, and Glenn began teaching Wayne what he knew about electronics.
I used to take Wayne out occasionally, but he didn't have the money, so when we went out we spent my money. So the bottom line was I said, I'll teach you to earn your own money, so we're not spending mine.
Glenn knew telecommunications, once deregulated, would go through rapid technological advancement. He could see a market opening for someone with his technical know-how, someone who could fix the new phones when their warranties ran out. And the market was signalling its need. Strangers were tracking him down at home to fix their phones. It was time to get some business premises. The right opportunity came up in suburban Avondale, where they got a shop for $50 a week. But almost immediately they were struck another blow. 2 burglaries in as many weeks. And with no capital to fall back on, they had no alternative but to shut shop.
We worked hard, but it was only the start. When we got burgled, it was only a setback, it was not a finish. In other words, we got set back, we're just going to jump straight back up again. So my feeling was a feeling of determination that we weren't going to be stopped.
But they were forced back on a benefit, fixing phones here and there with outdated equipment. After 2 years, Glenn thought he'd have another crack at starting his own venture. This time he decided to apply for a grant. With help from his sister Wendy, a bank officer, they wrote a business plan. And Ready, Willing and Able sent their business plan off to 2 organisations. Within months, they had their $10,000 grant. But promises of further help soon disappeared.
What actually happened in reality is we got the money, and that was it. There was no accountants, no legal advice and no rates rebates.
Their new premises, which opened in April 1992, cost more than they had wanted to pay, so the grant was quickly eaten into by set-up costs. But the locality had other advantages.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, my son actually dropped the phone.
But when we looked at the location, we knew we could get advertising dollars or advertising value out of the building.
The building backs onto Lynn Mall and a road carrying up to 30,000 people a day. This high exposure gave them their first customers. They also aligned themselves with retailers like Dick Smith, who placed their business cards near the point of sale in their stores.
Plug it in. If somebody buys a phone at a retailer, comes back when it's out of warranty, they don't want to know. They will happily get rid of their problem by giving it to us.
In 1993, they placed their first advertisement in the Yellow Pages. Today, 20% of their business comes from this ad, which generates inquiries from Warkworth to Thames. In the last 3 years, Glen and Wayne's turnover has doubled each year. Their business now fully supports them. So how have this gritty pair overcome the odds and turned setbacks into success? Glen's background in electronics helped him identify a gap in the market. He was abreast of technological changes, and continuous improvement kept his skills up to date. And both were determined to break out of the dependency cycle, start their own business and become independent earners.
I like to get out of bed, come to work, go home and feel that I've accomplished something and we can open the next day. I mean, we've had a lot of times where we thought we might not make it into next week, but we always have. We've always scraped through.
Coming up on Success.